Welcome back to another edition of the Buffalo Fatherhood Initiative podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Johnson, and I'm joined by two good brothers right here. Want to introduce yourself for us?
Hi, my name is Malik Stubbs. I'm a member of Breaking Barriers Buffalo, and I'm proud and happy to be here.
Yes, sir. And over here?
My name is Rasheem Powell. I'm a social worker, therapist. I work for the state of New York during the day in the prison system, and I work for myself in the evening. New Purpose Counseling, PLLC.
Whoa, you got a lot of tricks in the bag. I didn't know that. All right. So we're here today talking about mental health and wellness for fathers, boys, and young men of color in our community here in the city of Buffalo. This is something that we feel is important as we began to unpack and peel back some of the layers around why mental health is such a taboo topic for fathers or men of color in general, right? So for you fellas here, we were just talking about a whole lot, all right? Malik, we got a whole lot to talk about too today.
Yeah.
I've been knowing you for a little bit now. In fact, Malik and I, we went to high school together. Yeah, but so we got some long history together.
Yeah.
But Rasheem, let's kind of delve back into this conversation around purpose. We were just talking offline about how, you know, a lot of the work you do in the mental health space is related to your purpose. Tell us where that passion came from.
My passion let me tell you, my purpose is to help other people find their purpose. And the passion came from pain. My pain was, true story, I have two dads. And one dad was my quote unquote stepfather, but I don't like to say that, he raised me. And my biological dad wasn't there for me. So I was a little kid sitting on the porch in a snowstorm with a snowsuit on, waiting for somebody who didn't show up. So academically I excelled, I was okay. I did all right, but the pain of him not coming hurt me. And as a teenager, I started acting out in school, and grades dropped, all those type of things. And so I went to school for engineering for 3 years, but I just had this drive to figure out why drugs, why the neighborhood, why all these things. To fast forward this entire story, I started seeing it in younger kids and people. So I try to help them process through their pain. So that little boy acting up in school, grades start dropping. He starts acting up in school, talking back a little bit. You know, that's the people I talk to tell them, you know what? He may not ever show up for whatever reason. He might be dead. He might be incarcerated. He might be just abandoned for whatever reason. But don't stop your purpose. Don't stop your growth. So yeah, my goal is, it's all about purpose, man.
You are a deep brother. Yeah, deep brother. And so, you know, Malik, I don't want to leave you out of the conversation. Talk to us a little bit about, and I know you're super community oriented. You do a lot of work with Breaking Barriers. Shout out to Breaking Barriers, Daniels and his crew. But talk to us about why you do what you do and where you see the importance of mental health showing up, right, in connection to that.
So why I do what I do is because I have passion. I know that feeling when a young little boy doesn't have a father figure in their life. And I think that it's my role in the community to actually be that big brother, be that person that that little boy never had. And I think that, you know, like with mental health, I feel like as men of color, we don't really talk about our feelings, and that's not healthy. And I think that, you know, a lot of our problems could be solved by just talking to someone. And I think that, like, we don't really know what we go through because we don't talk. Because the things that we may go through may be the same thing that affects someone else.
Yeah. It's kind of like Rasheem was saying, when you were talking about your father, I started to think about some of my experiences too, right? So unlike you, I didn't have two fathers initially, you know, like the biological and stuff, but I had a biological father who was in and out of my life, really emotionally distant. Him and my mother had me at a really young age, and so I don't think either one of them was prepared for parenthood, right? Unlike my mother though, who she figured it out, right? Mother's got your back, right? The dad, there's a quote or whatever actually. They say, mother's baby, daddy's maybe, right? And so sometimes that's true. I don't necessarily like it, right? Because I'm a father now, but it's true sometimes. And so when you were talking about the disappointment of your dad not showing up and how that was like a theme, you know, growing up, I can relate, right? I remember sometime looking in the window, because my dad said he was coming, when my mom told me he was coming. I'm looking in the window for 10, 20, 50, you know, whatever minutes. I'm like, I'm waiting for my man to show up. He never came, right? So as a young boy, I'm disappointed. And that was a theme, right? The inconsistency and so forth. And so now the thing for me now is like, how do I break that cycle, right? So neither one of my parents are married. At a young age, I got married, not necessarily because of that, but like I value family now, right? So being able to kind of break some of those generational curses or traumas or whatever you want to call it is super important, and it relates to our mental health. So somewhere, right, you probably to Google this, but I believe, their research show that folks who are like in healthy relationships, whether married or not, tend to have better mental health, right? So like we talk about having somebody to go to, for those of us men who could be a little bit more open and so vulnerable with our partners, well, there's somebody to go to when we're not necessarily having a good day, right? And sometimes I'm guilty of that. Like my wife be like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good." I'm good. I'm not good.
Right, because you don't want to share it with her. You want to keep it to yourself and don't want to burden her with those issues. Yeah. But to talk to her about it is a good thing. I like to give a shout out to uncles, barbershop coaches, everybody that fills in the gap for those fathers. I mean, we don't know what those fathers went through. It's easy to say they're not there, but why? Their trauma, their hurt, their pain. So all those things to process through. I started working in the prisons because a little boy told the entire school, I was working in a school, that his father was incarcerated. He said, my father died. He said, my father died and all this. So I called his house, "Hey, Mom, I'm sorry about your husband." She said, "My husband's not dead. He's incarcerated." It's like, wow. And so he'd rather tell people his father's dead than say that he's incarcerated.
And you know what? So to a degree, I can relate, and I bet for him there's a lot of shame around that. So for me, around the age of 13, my father was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and so I didn't really want to talk about him like that. Right? When people ask me, "Where your father's at? What up?" And I'm like, "Oh, he got mental health illness," and I'm ashamed of that. Right? Like as a young boy, I don't want to talk about that. And so I don't think I ever went to the extent to say he died, but I certainly had a lot of mixed feelings around that and didn't want to talk about it, so I can relate to that.
Yeah, so I'm glad you have things like this so those kids can process through their hurt, their pain. I mean, I know, I can speak personally, I felt numb. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what to do. And my other dad, he was pointing to my face. He said, "You don't care, do you?" I didn't care about school, my girlfriend, job. I said, "I don't care. I don't care." But I didn't know why I didn't care. So I walked through my old neighborhood, Central Park. I don't care, but why? Every step, I don't care, but why? And once I came back, I changed. I started getting out of it. I wrote a poem, and if we have time, I'll share it. It's okay?
Sure.
Okay. It's called Hurt Without Pain. I should feel like dirt. It looks and sounds like hurt. I'm on the outside looking in, internally torn up but showing a grin. Despite my emotional fight, I brush it off and smile all night. I'm a man. I'll be all right. Bad things happen, but you won't know because all the unpleasant things I don't show. So I was just so numb to the pain. I didn't know what to do with it. It turned to anger. It turned to all that. But really behind that anger and acting out was a hurt little boy. And so when I'm out here working with people, I'm looking for that hurt and pain. So if someone would say to me, "Hey, I'm angry," I said, "What are you hurt about?" A subtle shift. Because anger jumps out up front, but the hurt and pain is what we're processing through.
Oh man,
That was deep. That was real
right?
deep. That was real deep.
Man, that makes me think of something that we talk about in our program. So our Buffalo Fatherhood Initiative has, a couple things that we do under the umbrella, and one of them is we do a lot of group-based work with guys using a curriculum called Nurturing Fathers. So one of the very first sessions, we start peeling back the layers with the subject called Roots of Fathering. So it has a lot to do with looking at our experiences with our fathers in relation to why we do what we do, whether it be our behaviors or the way that we parent, right? Because sometimes, for better or worse, the way that we parent is modeled after the way that our parents did things, right? But the roots of fathering goes back and starts, looking at the father wounds, right? So the father wound is related to the trauma that we experience around our relationship with our father. So for those of us who have emotionally or physically absentee fathers, well, that leaves a wound, kind of like, you're describing in your poem. It's an invisible one that you don't necessarily see it on the outside, but it's part of the reason why we see some of the undesirable behaviors with young people, right? So they start spazzing out, acting out in ways they wouldn't do otherwise. And grown men, it shows up too, right? So the little boy that didn't get the affirmation of love from his father, well, now he's womanizing, right? And he got a bunch of kids out here that he's not really taking care of. Or he's, alcoholism, can't put down the bottle because that's how he's coping, right? So we talk about mental health and wellness. Well, we have to peel back the layers of why we do what we do, which is something you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. You talk about little boys. I mean, I work in the prison system, and I work with people who are unfortunately killers. And on the gate, real tough. We get to a conversation one-on-one, we peel back those layers, man. I mean, really, being a therapist, we're not really working until you're crying. And I mean, I had some real serious connection with folks. After you get all that tough guy stuff out the way, you're right there to their heart. And I mean, I like to say, one level, man. Human beings. You got to see the human being in other folks. So everything not what it seems. Just because this person did this, and this, doesn't mean it's not that human being in there. That little boy inside, your inner child, still needs that conversation. For example, me waiting on that porch, I had to go back to myself and say, little man, take that snowsuit off. He's not coming, but it's okay. And you're going to be okay. And watch out for this and watch out for that. Watch out for this. So my father not being around, I had anger toward him. So I learned how to shake a man's hand from a street guy. He's not a street guy anymore, but he said, that's not how you shake a hand, you get yourself killed. When I got a hair bump, I was angry at my father, so all that stuff just went on. He had some struggles, he had drug addiction, but he cleaned himself up. And once he cleaned himself up, he still was pretty much the same guy without the drug addiction. So I'm not anti my father, I'm all about just helping people find their purpose, man. And so if someone veers off course, it's not the end of the road. If somebody's grades drop, it's not the end of the road. It's little kids or people, younger people, don't just talk like we're talking. They act out. So we got to get their behavior cues. I was trying to tell my parents some way or another, nobody listened to me. So we got to watch their behaviors. And if their behaviors start changing, that's what, hey, you okay? Are you really okay? I have a son, and that changed my life, by the way. Once I held him, that was it. Everything made sense. Everything made sense. The sacrifice, the love, holding him showed me how much God loved me. I'm like, is this how God loves me? But yeah,
you saying a lot. You saying a lot. So I'll just kind of piggyback off where you just left off. And so studies show that a lot of times men who might have commitment issues or whatever, when they have a child, like that's a game changer, right? Like having a child just does something it changes women obviously in different ways, but it changes the way, literally, the way that our brain structure it's been processing things, it changes that stuff, right? So when we get more protective, the way that we view the world around us is just totally different. And so that is a nice time. I say nice, and that's a good time to begin talking to a brother who may have not been taking life serious. Like, this time is a transition time for you. You know what I'm saying? But there's a lot.
Yeah. And I get the opportunity to work with children, folks in the community, and as I say, it's the hurt, the pain, redirecting it, repurposing it. Let you know that's part of the process. That's not the end of the process. You got to go through it to get there. There's a story about 3 feet from the gold. You heard that, Napoleon Hill, back in 1849, the uncle and the nephew bought some land and some mining equipment, and they going for gold. Everybody around them getting gold. They're not getting gold. Year 2, no gold. Year 3, no gold. They said, man, we got to sell this land. We got to sell the mining equipment. And they sold it. And the next owner went 3 feet from where they were and got gold. So you got to persevere and go through your pain. Like my most painful moments, I asked God, I said, okay, God, don't take this pain away, but what am I supposed to learn from it? And he always gave me the lesson. And some of those lessons were humbleness, gratitude, gratefulness. I mean, I talked about the guy down in Florida looking for a job. I mean, losing jobs, but food in your mouth, shoes in your feet. Blessed, just blessed to have someone to talk to. Blessed to have to be in a number. Blessed. And peace. In my mind, it's not the gold is precious metal, but in real life, it's peace. Peace and joy, waking up, man, just with peace. There's so many people with turmoil and all that. So just peace of mind and peace in your heart and peace in your spirit.
All right, you got a collection plate or something?
Oh my
Now, I don't want to leave you
We
out
take
of the
donations.
conversation, man. Is there anything that you wanted to jump in on before I keep talking? Otherwise, I'll let keep going.
I feel like no matter where you are, as a young person, you're always going to be seeking love and support. And I think that we need to get that for our father figures and our community. Because a lot of people think that, you know, you have to be a dad to love a child, or you have to be a certain color, you have to come from social status. No, as long as you have like an unconditional love and also support for that child. I mean, you could be whoever, as long as that child, as long as you believe in that child could succeed.
That's right.
I think it's really nothing stopping us from supporting young men of color with mental health, because honestly, it's a big need that needs to be addressed. So, I mean, I like, you know, just all the initiatives that's happening in Buffalo, especially since like the 514 shooting, because that was like a crisis, and also that really impacted a lot of people mentally. So I'm proud to see our city just doing amazing work.
Yeah. Like we talk about young people, they get misdiagnosed. Like you look at a kid that's depressed or anxious, they'll say he's acting out behavior and he's angry, right? And anger is such a bad, you're an angry black man. Now when I was younger, I said, no, I'm not angry, but yes, I'm angry. And I'm angry because of this, and this. You know, institutional racism, being mistreated, discrimination. So a little kid has a right to be angry. But let's process, why are you angry? Why are you hurting? So we process through that. Let's go. And I've had some success with a lot of kids when it comes down to that clenched fist to open hand. So, okay, maybe I could put down this and do my schoolwork. Maybe I could look toward and work with my mother, you know, because a lot of times that little boy that you're yelling at in the grocery store, no, you can't have this and that. He's 13 now, so he's not gonna have it. He's smelling, so everything is a man. He's not a man yet, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help guide those young elephants, knocking down the rhinos.
That's right, yeah. I know that one, yeah. And you're hitting on something that's so good too, you know, because nowadays, you know, we live in a society where these young boys, you know, they get big, they be like 12, 13, whatever, and they look like big old trees, right? and now, I think, you know, society is like, now you're a man, right? Because you got hair on your face, and maybe your voice start changing and all that stuff, apart from them smelling themselves, but then they also get treated like a man. Right, and you made a lot of points already where they're not emotionally manhood yet. They're still, you know, emotionally immature, right, and trying to work through things. And so I think sometimes we do them a disservice by like, oh, you a man now, blah blah blah. Like no, like you still a young person that has a lot to learn, right? So yeah, no, and like you said, it's our responsibility as men to be able to take them under our wings, especially when they don't have somebody that's crazy about them, right? There's a statement that I read that said, you know, every young person needs at least one person, adult, it doesn't have to be their parent, but somebody that's crazy about them, right? For me, that was my mother. You know, my wife is crazy about our kids, so I don't know if it's a team, right? But man, every young person needs at least one person like that, right? And I think that's so true.
Yeah, we look at the teenage years. The brain doesn't develop till around age 25, so they're making impulsive. That's why car insurance go down for males at age 25. You know, they don't let you rent a car, or they charge you extra to rent a car because your brain's not developed. So your frontal brain, your decision-making part of your brain, is not even developed. And so we got to help them through that phase. You know, we got to lead by example and show them how to get from this impulsive reaction to, okay, some emotional intelligence, and let me move in this particular way. You know, and one of my favorite theories is called the social learning theory. Social learning theory says that if I see somebody who I think is okay, cool, and I can emulate them, I would more likely listen to them. I'm not saying I can't listen to a Caucasian lady, but if I have a black male teacher like Mr. Titus at McKinley, you know, yeah, Mr. Titus, my guy, yeah, good guy, right? So you guys went to McKinley. Yeah, it was crazy. Put you in the headlock and all that, and, you know, send you on your way. But I thought he was cool, and so I listened to what he had to say. So if I was out of order, he can put me back in order. No problem.
Man, we could be here all day. We got 4 series though. This is one of 4 podcast barbershop series. And Malik, you brought up the 515 or 514 incident that happened last year. And part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing now is to help combat some of those ripple effect from the tragedy, right? There's a lot of stuff about that was racially motivated that, you know, some of the guys are talking about it over there that impacts people of color, right? And we're specifically addressing them. So I appreciate you brothers for being vulnerable and being a part of this conversation and bringing your life perspectives. Yeah, so until next time, we will see you when we see you next week.